By the time a game ships, a team has spent months, maybe years, trying to figure out how to make the game the best it can be. Or at least good enough to ship. But development is only part of the battle, because if folks don't know about your game, it makes it pretty hard for them to buy it. So what are all of the different ways that you could be approaching your game's marketing? What are the impacts that it could or couldn't have? And in a world where we have more and more games releasing every day, what does success look like? And how do you set yourself up for the future? Our next speaker is here to talk about that whole process for her studio, Munana Games. They released last year Keylocker, turn-based cyberpunk action. It's a pretty cool game, and it was actually part of our Game Devs of Color Expo Direct last year. Here to talk more about the process of development and marketing for Keylocker, please welcome to the stage, Nana Moon.
Hello everyone, I am Nana Moon and I'm today here with Keylocker turn-based cyberpunk action development and marketing Postmortem. And today I'll be reading my notes here from my phone. So if you see me looking down here, it's me looking at my notes. So I'm a Brazilian game developer now living in England. As a Brazilian, I am a very mixed person coming from native indigenous and African descent. And all of my works reflect that a lot since I'm the director and main writer for all of our games. I work with the company I created since 2017, so my friends and I have been working together now for 8 years. I did my first demo in 2017 as well, got a successful Kickstarter, and released my first game, Virgo vs. the Zodiac, in 2019. I started working on a new game, Keylocker turn-based cyberpunk action, in 2020, and it finally released in September 2024, after almost 5 years of development. In this talk, I'll be going through how I marketed the game in these 5 years, everything that has been learned, and all the ways that the world changed while me and my team were working on the game. Going through another Kickstarter, COVID, social media platforms that were constantly changing, and finally reaching the launch and seeing how all of our efforts converted into the release of the game. I really wanted to put down all of the things I've learned over this past 5 years into one single place because so many things have changed since I released my last game in 2019. We're all in a completely different marketing environment compared to back then. I hope that by sharing some of the things me and my team learned, I can help others find their way to success in this new landscape. This talk was done collaboratively with Electrobear, my musician, who handles our TikTok, but he's a very, very shy person. So I hope to be his voice as well for the experience he went through as well as my own while marketing our games. So then what is Keylocker? Keylocker is a turn-based cyberpunk RPG with timed hits like the Mario RPGs. You play as a singer in a world without music, living in the lowest zone of the tube, a cyberpunk society built in layers within the core of Saturn, ruled by the satellites. My previous game, Virgo vs. the Zodiac, was a turn-based RPG with timed hits as well, and I wanted to continue building on this concept and to expand on it. The way we've done that was by adding more rhythm elements to the combat through minigames to go better with the musical themes of the story, as well as the tactical grids that made our positioning in battle a lot more important. I really love the idea of turn-based with a twist, because there are many players who like RPGs but find the classic turn-based style too lacking in engagement. We've seen recently with the success of both Expedition 33 and the gameplay change of the Yakuza series to turn-based timed hits, that there can be a big audience for this type of game. In the specific sections of the game, you will also get to perform in Guitar Hero style concert minigames, where Bobo, the main character of the game, will play a song with her band in the Guitar Hero style. This amount of different gameplay elements worked to our advantage in some ways because it made the game look very interesting. But we also saw an effect of some players who enjoyed our previous game, Virgo vs. the Zodiac, being scared off by the addition of the rhythm elements into the game, while other players Seems like they expected more rhythm elements than we had in the game. There's always a possibility of dividing your audience too much when introducing many different elements like this into your game. It's a bit of a gamble. In addition to this, we put a focus on not having any random encounters, which moves the game even further from the classic RPG style. As being able to see your enemies in the world adds a lot to the amount of immersion you have in the world itself. And finally, we always include a system of choice in the game, leading to different endings. In this case, we built 4 endings for players to find, as well as a romancing system that leads to a possible 9 extra ending scenes for people to see. The game is also taking into account some of your other choices, like which class you selected to change some things about your experience. At the beginning of the game, actually, you can choose a class and then it changes completely the maps that you see and the NPCs that you see at the beginning of the game on the prologue. So all in all, there are a lot of different outcomes to test and make sure that everything is working properly. So there was a lot of bug fixing in this game. So to the review of Keylocker to the wood. We started working on the game as early as January 2020. And the first thing we decided was to have a completely different perspective compared to our previous game. Over the first few months of development, we created a bunch of graphics and put together the basic gameplay, enough to start showing the game, and we were ready with a trailer by May 2020. It's a great idea to keep an eye out for showcases, advertising that they are looking for games. From March to May, as there are always a ton of events going on during the Summer Game Fest period in early June. And there's often a slot that your game might fit perfectly into. In this case, we saw a post from the Escapist talking about wanting to start an indie game showcase. So we sent them some emails and got a slot on their show. So we prepared the trailer for them, an 8-minute gameplay video, to go up on our YouTube channel, a press release to go out at the same time as the show, and a bunch of emails to every game journalist's emails we could find. This included a bunch of emails from journalists that engaged with Virgo vs. the Zodiac. So trying to get the people that worked with you previously is actually a very good idea. Then we put together some Twitter posts, put everything online, and waited to see what the reception would be like. As you can see here on the image on the right, the Twitter response was very lacking. I posted more and more, but it was clear that there was something wrong with the game. So we started working on a graphics overhaul. In September 2020, we reviewed the new graphics of the game, going from a 45-degree angle to a fully isometric perspective, which ended up adding a lot more of a 3D feeling to the game. Here's a video remake of the original review trailer showing the two perspectives side by side. The original perspective was based on some graphics from a game called Ultima that had a really weird perspective with this 45-degree angle. But for the game, it's kind of worked. Unfortunately, it didn't really work out for Keylocker, as a large downside would be that there aren't a lot of games made in this particular aesthetics. So there are no real associations to lean on, marketing-wise, and it's generally weird for players to look at the world in that perspective, making the isometric world a more natural transition. Isometric, of course, is a very specific and recognizable art style that has been used in many successful and highly popular games, particularly RPGs, as well as tactical games. So it was really the perfect art style for the game, as we were also starting to think about changing the gameplay to be more tactical during this time. And as to why we changed the graphics, I like to show in our games as soon as possible on social media because it gives you a way of measuring very early on how people are receiving it. As you can see on the picture here on the right, there was a big increase in engagement on our posts on Twitter in particularly after the change. I was also posting on Tumblr at the time, but everything there was declining, particularly due to the porn crackdown having a big effect on the Tumblr user base. So I moved my efforts more towards Twitter at the time. I got the opportunity to participate in the Game Devs of Color Direct in September 2020, which was again the perfect opportunity to review the new graphics to the world. So we prepared a new trailer, a remake of the review trailer with the new graphics, as well as the comparison video you saw previously, to show the fans how things turned out. During this period, a lot of our time just went into remaking the graphics, so we didn't have too much progress on new things. It can be very dangerous to make changes like this mid-development, which is why it's important to find out as early as possible if you need to do any graphical changes at all. It also can be an opportunity to do another push on marketing and to get more people interested in the game. Although I wouldn't say it's the best marketing strategy. As while players like to see development, they don't enjoy as much to see changes when they don't greatly improve on what you had beforehand, as they can feel betrayed. The Game Devs of Color event came with a nice Steam sale event as well, and we ended up doubling our amount of wish lists, growing from 3,500 to over 8,000 during the event. After this, feeling certain that the game was going in a good direction now, we started preparing the first demo and preparing everything for the Kickstarter. One whole year of work later, we had put together a fully playable version of the first zone in the game, which we thought was a reasonable 2 hours of gameplay. But it turned out that some players spent almost 6 hours in that demo. We also prepared a new trailer, set up another round of PR outreach of our own, prepped Twitter content for the month that the Kickstarter would be running, and got a new member into the team to try making some TikTok videos during the Kickstarter month. Then during the Kickstarter, we ran a Twitter ad campaign on our best performing post and contacted other game Kickstarters running at the same time to exchange promos with them during our update posts. Overall, we ended up with exceeding our Kickstarter funding goal and bought ourselves time to secure a publishing deal for the game. But should you do a Kickstarter? There are some things to consider with this, and if you decide to do, if you should prepare yourself for one of the most stressful months of development. These days, there are built-up sense of distrust and fatigue towards Kickstarters because a lot of people haven't delivered on their promises, which has burned people's goodwill towards these projects. But it's still possible to run one. Just prepare yourself emotionally for some people to reject you out of hand, even if your project is really cool. Kickstarter follows are worth mentioning as well. Basically, before you open your Kickstarter, you get a chance to convince people to follow the Kickstarter, which will give them an email notification when the Kickstarter opens officially. The following is important to have as many people as possible coming on day one to your Kickstarter to support you. Because if you hit your funding target in one day, that's another nice marketing thing to work around. I'd say having at least 1 year of your Kickstarter page open for people to wishlist the page might be a must, depending on your goal. I've heard that if you want to reach 100,000 or more, to have at least 1,000 followers there. Basically, a Kickstarter is a chance for you to aggressively test your whole marketing thesis for the game in an intense 1 month period. It's good because this 1 month period is before you release your game. So you get to test the marketing if it's like effective before the release of the game. It's like a dry run for your launch period, and you have to be ready to give your all to reach your goals. Here's a look at where we were standing right around the middle of 2022, just after participating in PAX East 2022 and Ludonarcon. The game was experiencing what looked like a good solid amount of growth to us as in-person events were finally returning after COVID. in reduced formats. And we got the chance during this year to participate in PAX in Boston, Beat Summit in Kyoto, Gamescom in Cologne, and Brazil Game Show in São Paulo. During this time, we were using a Kupara Games event mailing list to keep up with deadlines to both in-person and online Steam events. But these days, we're using the How to Market a Game Discord for event notifications. It's a good idea to find one of these lists to keep up, because there are constantly new events appearing to participate in. Just be aware that not all Steam events are made the same, and most of them don't get any features from Steam unless they already have recognition, which means no Steam front page and very little to no visibility. At first, when I started developing Virgo vs. Zodiac, I was an active Tumblr user, posting there a lot, and the user base seemed to receive my Zodiac game very well. Then, as time went by, I started using Twitter more, as it seemed like it was the main platform for the online game dev community at the time. For Keylocker, however, I started moving away from Tumblr, as I mentioned already previously, due to a lot of the users leaving, and instead started trying out TikTok while continuing to post on Twitter. Then after the release of Keylocker, I've been using Blue Sky a lot more. And we've had some success with TikTok as well recently. Here are my impressions based on using all of these platforms. Tumblr is still around and is still active, with specific types of highly fandom-interested people, although the overall base of users is smaller than it was in the past. If you want to grow a community of highly engaged people who love story games, these seems like the best place to find them. Twitter over the years has moved more and more to content based on what the users consume, and what is shown to them is automated based on the user's behavior, which has reduced the usefulness of the platform for us in some ways and increased it in other ways. In general, it's harder to get your posts in front of the people who actually follow you, but it seems to be a good platform when it comes to following trends to get your posts seen, as the algorithm will recommend similar types of content to users. If you look at one hashtag, screenshot Saturday post, you see a bunch of them. At least that's what the platform was like. I'm not sure how it is now, as like many others in the game dev community, I stopped using that and moved on to Blue Sky. It's important as a game dev to keep up with new and emerging social media platforms to be able to understand fully what sort of audience you can access in each place. As I just mentioned, I've moved into posting more actively on Blue Sky instead of Twitter, and the results have been interesting because despite being similar, the platforms are also extremely different. Blue Sky as a platform has multiple features which are meant to enable discovery and allow people to create their own mini communities within smaller curated algorithms. And more importantly, it seems to convert much better than other platforms into actual visit to your links. It also has a very large active game dev community, but trends don't seem to work as well there as they did on Twitter. TikTok is right on the border of not being an emerging platform anymore, as it has gone through a similar sort of exodus event as Tumblr did recently, but it is still pretty active and has been converting well to Wishlist for us. As a platform, it seems to be the best place to reach actual video game players, rather than just reaching game devs or other people trying to advertise their own things. Recently, I've been using Shouhoushu, also known as Red Note, which is a mix of Instagram and TikTok, with long-form text allowed and lots of community monthly challenges led by moderators that turn into internal trends. Back then, when TikTok was banned in the US, there was a huge exodus to this platform. It's interesting because it's one of the only social media platforms where you can interact directly with Chinese audience. And we should all be well aware that China's gaming market is huge, as they make up the second biggest user base on Steam. So with in-person events still be worth it? As part of our marketing for Keylocker, we attended several in-person events, and I kept asking myself this question: is this worth it? The costs are usually high, as you have to pay for your spot unless you're getting through a selection program, which is very, very difficult. When we attended PAX East in 2022, we made it in through the PAX Rising selection, which made the stand space free for us. Even then, you still have to provide all of the systems, screens, and control devices, which can be tricky. Although, if you put in the work to reach out to manufacturers, they are sometimes willing to sponsor you with equipment for the big events. The costs of just securing a spot can run into thousands of dollars. And if you're running 2 demo stations in your area with a 30-minute demo, it only converts into a mostly 32 play sessions per day. So I highly recommend you have a smaller 10 minutes or 15 minutes long demo. The real value of the event usually comes through the included Steam events, which can drive significant wishlist growth if the event's big enough to get front page featuring. Plus, indie areas will often have very bad placement compared to the AAA booths that get first dibs on positioning. In a smaller indie-focused event like Beat Summit, everyone is on pretty equal terms, but in an event like Tokyo Game Show, you just get put aside in an entirely different hall with the IKEA gaming chairs and the merchandise booth. The foot traffic is still insanely high, but it's certainly not the sea of humans you see in the pictures beforehand. It's also worth mentioning that being able to see people play your game in person is very valuable playtesting data to work with. Although you have to look at it through the lens of the session itself being at a show floor, which is one of the most chaotic, loud, and distracting places. You can never play a video game in, but maybe this might be the best time to see what truly works and doesn't in your game. However, the human side of having a place to meet fans in person is something incredibly invaluable to myself. I've attended multiple events in Japan now, and there are people whom I've met several times by now, each time proudly displaying their treasured pins from our previous visits and telling me about how much they love my games, which is crazy since we live so far away, but we have this shared love for games. That's the sort of thing you never forget about. Then what about the Steam events? Most of Keylocker's wish lists actually came from Steam events. And if that's a metric you're focusing on, a front page featured Steam event is absolutely one of the best places to gain them. However, currently our wishlist conversion percentage sits at only 5%, so it leaves you with a question. Are Steam event wishlists low value? There's certainly an argument to be made that overall, Steam events, as well as the increased focus on getting people to wishlist games, has led to a devaluation of wishlist in general. The result of that, in our case, is that Keylocker is selling at a fairly similar rate to Virgo vs. Zodiac, despite it having 10 times the amount of wishlist at launch. Despite this, the fact remains that every single person who has gone out of their way to wishlist your game is someone who is in the very least a maybe. They know about your game. Every number in that little Steam graph represents a person who at one point looked at your game and thought it could be an interesting play. Then what matters more is to create excitement, reach all these people and convert all those maybes into actual sales on launch day. Is trying to make sure that your game is something that people can't say no to on that first day. They aren't waiting for a deep sale. They need this game on release. And then, for the sad part, what went wrong on launch of Keylocker? As we were approaching the launch window, some last-minute delays and complications pushed us from an August release into a September release. And as we were selecting a date to release the game, the most open date available seemed to be September 18th, which was also the release date of UFO 50, a game that happened to be huge with journalists, streamers, and YouTubers. So despite being games of relatively similar followers numbers at launch, UFO 50 exploded and Keylocker got almost no attention. To this day, we're still reaching people on TikTok who simply have no idea that the game has already been released, even if they were previously interested in playing it. In that sense, the launch itself went badly, which was not helped by angry reviews by journalists, which seemed out of tune with the Steam reviews at the time. This is a huge issue because console players often check journalist reviews before buying a game. The end result of all of this was the game was just not reaching a high enough visibility to convert our wish lists and create positive traction with word of mouth. It's difficult as well to maintain your own levels of marketing effort in the launch window because at that point, you're so focused on just finishing the game, crunching hard to try and test every possible option and catch every possible bug before release. Keylocker is a complicated game as well, which makes things more difficult as there are so many different variations and options to look at while making sure everything is working properly. UFO 50, interestingly enough, is a good example of a game that didn't have a very loud marketing push before launch and was arguably going on under the radar a bit, but had a strong marketing performance in the launch window, which pushed it much higher than us. In this modern landscape of game development, where there are more releases than ever before, the fact remains that attention spans are limited. Content creators will only really pick up one game at a time, and then they control a huge amount of the audience's attention. All across the industry, you see indie developers, AAA developers, and publishers, all struggling with the same fundamental issue, which is how to command attention and interest on launch. So after all of this, what are we doing differently next time? In this whole 5-year journey of Keylocker development, it's clear that there are things that worked well and things that didn't work well. With all of those in mind, for our next game, Cloud King, we've decided to stay within the RPG niche, but focus on a much simpler tactics experience to appeal better to a genre-specific fan base that you could argue has been underfed for many years. We have been testing out our marketing hook on TikTok recently, which revolves around embracing the absurdity of making a tactics games about clowns, and it seems to be working with people and creating a strong response. The game itself is very clearly a tactics game, as soon as you see it, which was an area where Keylocker suffered from being too conceptually spread out. In terms of social presence, we are putting our focus towards emerging platforms instead of legacy platforms to try and stay ahead of the curve and have a strong presence in places where audiences are moving towards. I'd really like to try out posting my games on Red Note as well, because I really believe that whoever unlocks that platform properly can make huge steps towards the Chinese Steam community. And since we have our games translated to Chinese already, that would be best for us. We want to continue running Kickstarters because of how effective they can be for community building and creating interest in the project, because it gives you an early chance to get people to buy into your project and get invested in it, as well as a chance to focus solely on marketing for a short but intense period. The main change I would make with our next Kickstarter is to take a longer time to gather Kickstarter followers before opening the Kickstarter, as we only gathered follows for a month for Keylocker. And finally, I want to move our projects towards shorter development periods and eventually focus on more than one project at once to hedge our bets better when it comes to the future. Game development is entirely too risky, so it's good to have another project to fall back to if one fails. And when we get bored from one project, to go a little bit on the other, dip our toes there, and then go back to our main one. Well, this is it. Thank you so much for watching. I am Nana Moon, developer of Rogue vs. Zodiac, Keylocker, and I'm now working on a new game called Cloud King. a turn-based tactics game inspired by Disgaea, Fire Emblem, and Brazilian culture, where you lead a troop of clowns in rebellion against the Mad King of the Moonlit Kingdom. So definitely wishlist that and buy all of our previously released games if you feel like it. Thank you so much for watching my talk today. I hope you all had an amazing time, and if you have any questions, you can email them to the email showing on the screen now. Make sure to follow me on social media. I'm on TikTok as Munana Games, on Blue Sky as Munana, and you can also support my work through my Etsy shop where I sell my characters, stickers, posters of my games, and phone grips of random things I like. I hope this talk helped you. Bye-bye.
Thanks for that talk, Nana. It's true, there's no guaranteed win in marketing your game. The odds of hitting the Indie Lotto ticket seem to be getting lower and lower as more and more games come out and all of those other changes. But I find this talk really inspirational because it shows the ways that you can adapt and change with the times. And even if you don't hit the Indie Lotto ticket, you can still find success. Keylocker was well reviewed. It created an infrastructure for the team to be able to continue developing games. And the Clown King is learning from the situations of the past, hopefully setting up for a better future. These are the things that we all hope that we're able to do when we share knowledge and understanding. So thank you again for sharing that talk, Nana. If you would like to keep up with the team, you can follow Munana on TikTok, Blue Sky, and Red Note. And you can also wishlist The Crowned King on Steam.